We are going to go up to the Great White North. We're going to go up to Canada. We're going to talk with James. He, him is a theist and wants to talk about the existence of life. Well, I like that, James. You're chatting with Secular Rarity and Scott Dickie. What is up?
Right on. Hey, how you guys doing?
Hi, James. Doing well.
Good. I'd like to start with a premise, if I can try, and that is that all we know is that we're here, and we don't know how we got here. Can we agree on that?
I wouldn't say that's all we know.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's all we know, but I'd say we that's not it's not a terrible sentiment that you're expressing
we
there.
Can agree that we're here.
Yeah, for sure we're here. And we're not 100% positive about how we got here.
Right, and so how we got here is the part that is either faith or theory. And research, science is endeavoring to find out. What was that?
I was just kind of agreeing, just saying like, yeah, sure. There's some different answers that are posited by many different people, some with books, some with revelation, some with test tubes and math. But yeah, what you got?
So what I'm saying with that is that there's no proof. And the way it works is that there's theory, and then you give a list of reasons that would support the theory,
I think there's I think there can be some proof, right? Like, for instance, like, I know I have some proof as to how I'm like here on this show, right? For instance, like I got a message, that said like, hey, come do it at this time. And then I have this camera, so there's some stuff that we, and we could prove that, right? Like I have this house, I pay a lease on this thing, like I have that on paperwork. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about humanity, mankind. All we know is how we got here. We don't know, and we have theories and research.
I know how I got here.
Yeah,
I think so. There's no proof. I can't prove it. There's no proof to be made.
I don't know. I think there is. Again, I know I'm just being a little bit nitpicky, James, but like, for instance, I think we have really, really solid proof that your parents had sex to get you, I think we have really, really solid proof that like that is kind of how humans got here. I also think we have really, really solid proof, for instance, about like, evolution and like changing of allele frequencies and like different physical makeups and, genetic code. And like we did, lay out the whole human genome a while ago. So like we have some proof, right?
Right. Well, evolution is a theory, and so using theories.
So what do you mean by theory when you say that? Because then I'll tell you what the other people mean by theory when they say evolution is a theory. What do you mean when you say the word theory?
A theory is an idea that may be true but isn't proven.
Awesome. So in the scientific communities, and believe me, I am not smart enough to be a part of these. They regularly kick me out, James. They laugh me out the door and tell me to go play in the sandbox. But in those spaces, they use the term hypothesis more so to kind of talk about what you're talking about. So there's this other term, though, that I would say is something that's more common parlance for you and I, right? Smarty pants, they can say whatever the fuck they want. But we would say this other term like a fact. Like this is a water bottle in Elliot's hand. That's a fact. Like that is just so fucking solid to believe that, man, if there wasn't actually a water bottle in my hand right now, that would be so radically altering to the way that I understand the entire world. That's the way that the science smarty people mean theory. So when they say the germ theory of disease, what they mean is germs make diseases. Germs are real and they're all the fuck around us all the fucking time. And if we somehow disproved this, it would be so radical to everything we understand about reality. Does that make sense? Does that kind of clear up how they're using that term?
Yeah, but maybe we don't have a premise then, because I'm saying that all we know is our record going back to 3,500 years BC. That's all we
Sure.
know.
But that's not what evolution is talking about, right? Evolution's not talking about, see, how we know evolution is a thing has nothing to do with human written records, right?
Right.
Right. So
It remains
we
a
do
theory.
have proof.
It's a theory. It's considered, everyone's pretty sure it's true, but it's a theory that's pretty sure it's true. Relativity is pretty sure it's true. No one knows for sure if it's true. It remains a theory, but everyone's
That's how
pretty sure
science works, right?
Yeah. We never get to a place of 100% certainty. The big smarty pants are never going to get to the 100%. It definitely is this and nothing else.
Right.
So like the best we can get is this, like, we're pretty damn confident, you know, like 97, 98%, but like we're pretty fucking confident, you know. This is where you and I we would just say, oh, it's a fact, you know. Bill down the road, Bill's a mechanic. He's been a mechanic for 40 fucking years. That's just a fact. There's no theory about that. There's no hypothesis about that. He just is that damn thing, you know? And the same thing, I would say, again, is how the science smarty people use theory.
If you think we don't have evidence for evolution, do you think we should believe it?
No.
Okay. So you believe that a God created us. What's your evidence?
There isn't evidence. It's faith. We have.
Okay. So if I shouldn't believe something because I have no evidence, does it same thing apply to you? You don't have evidence, so should you believe it?
I have a list of reasons why I believe it.
You just said you have no evidence.
At the beginning. Right. You can't have evidence. You can't have that.
Okay. So if you can't have evidence, then you don't have evidence. Is that right? Can't have evidence is not a reason to not have to get evidence. It's just an explanation on why you don't have any evidence. So you said that if I don't have evidence for evolution, I shouldn't believe that, but you don't think that same principle applies to you. If you don't have evidence of a God, then you shouldn't believe it, according to your logic.
You should regard evolution as a theory, and that you don't know for sure, and it's an
Should I believe that it's true?
And same here with that. With me,
should I believe it's true? Should I believe evolution is true? If there were no evidence for it, although there's tons and tons of evidence, but let's assume for a second that you're right and that there's no evidence for evolution. Should I believe that it's true?
If there's no evidence, and if it's a good theory, and if you want to believe it's true,
that we'd have to decide good theory after the fact.
It's a subjective thing. If it's a good theory, and then you.
I think you're trying very hard to avoid saying no. I think you're trying really, really hard to not say no, because now you know where this is going to lead. So if you have no evidence for God, then why should we believe in God?
Well, there's a list of reasons why to believe in God.
Okay, let's start with number one.
It's theory and list of reasons. Mm-hmm. Okay, reason one is is the existence of life. Matter does not create life. Matter creating life.
Hold on.
And observed.
The existence of you said life only comes from other life. So what's your evidence for that?
That's what is observed. A scientist.
No, we can't observe that.
All truth by observation.
So we can't observe. We can't observe that life never came from non-life.
Well, shouldn't it always be happening? Since when does one thing happen?
Hey, you're asking me questions. What I'm asking you for is evidence. If you don't have any evidence, then you can just say, I don't have any evidence. That's fine.
Well, how can you say that matter created life? Same way.
I didn't. You said life only comes from life. I didn't say life might come from non-life. I don't know.
Okay, well,
I'm only going to say things that I feel confident in and that I can back up.
Right, okay. So
Do you think that I'm being overly cautious with myself? Or do you think I'm kind of doing things the right way?
Seems like the right way.
Okay. So then are you going to do it that way too?
Sure.
Okay. So if you don't have evidence for your God, then you should just, I'm not saying that you should believe there is no God. I'm just saying you should withhold your belief that there is a God and just say, I don't know.
Right. You start with, I don't know. We all
Okay.
have to be agnostic. We don't know.
So if we start with I don't know, then you need evidence to get off of I don't know. You're kind of stuck on that island.
Right.
You need evidence to get off of the I don't know. So that's what I'm asking you about then. And do you have any of that evidence, which you said we can't have already?
Before you respond, James, and I will let Scott lay out that question again, so you don't have to worry about memorizing it right now or anything. But just before we go any further, I want to take 2 seconds to just hardcore freaking say I am thrilled by this back and forth right now. I mean, you both have been so honest and so fucking humble. I think this is amazing. And I've just been sitting over here just clapping repeatedly like, fuck yeah, Scott. Fuck yeah, James. Like, you're nailing it. So I'm sorry. I was getting real excited and I was squirming in my chair and I just had to say that. So Scott, say that
Okay.
say that question again for James, and then I'll just shut up and just let y'all cook.
All right. Well, I was just about to hang up on James, but I guess I can't now. So I better. I'm kidding, of course, James. I'm kidding. I agree. I think this conversation has been excellent. But so you're saying that if we don't have evidence, we shouldn't believe in something. And so then we start with I don't know, which is kind of where I am. And I'm happy to have you join me on this I don't know island. How are we going to get off? We need evidence.
Right. And so what it is we don't know, and so we have to figure out how it is that we got here. And so you don't know, I don't know, we all don't know how it is we got here, and so that's our starting premise. And so
I would suggest that in order to find that out, I would say that in order for us to find that way of getting off, we need to gather evidence. And if there's no evidence to be gathered, then we're stuck on I don't know.
Okay, well, start with it looks like it. It looks like it's the world was created, man was created, human.
How do you know that?
Okay,
there's no evidence.
Yeah.
How do you know that it looks like it's created?
So that's starter. That's one, right? And life creating life is another one.
Before we no. I want you to back up number one before you go to number two. We're not just going to have a list of gobbledygook here. Huh? See what I did there?
You brought it back.
So we need to, how does that, we need to figure out how we got here. How do we do that?
Right. We need to figure out how, we don't know. All we could do is work with theories, how we got here.
See, I don't agree with that, James. I think there are methods for us to be able to determine, at the very least, some information as to how we got here. Now, maybe not 100%, right? Maybe not all the way to that infinite past that Paul and myself and Scott were talking about a minute ago. Maybe we can't go that far back, but there are clear methodologies that we use. Right? Like before you called this show, wherever you are right now, I bet you could probably retrace most of your steps today. Maybe not for the whole month, maybe not for the whole 5 years, but I mean, come on. If somebody walks into your kitchen with a birthday cake and a receipt from Dairy Queen, you have some methodologies as to figuring out how this guy got here with that cake, right?
Right.
Yeah. So there are some things that already exist for us. Like, for instance, if I wasn't sure and I wanted to find out if I had more brothers and sisters or more relatives out there in my city or in another city, I could go get a DNA test. And we could compare that to other people that have gotten those DNA tests. And we could look at those and go, wow, this one is so freaking similar. And we can do that, funny enough, with non-humans as well. We can take your dog right now if you have one. I don't know. But let's say a friend of mine has this cute little Shih Tzu, adorable little fucker. We know exactly who her mama and daddy are. And we can find her damn cousins all over the state. All we got to do is get a little bit of that dog DNA. And we can do this with a bunch of things. In fact, we can do it with every living thing. And there does seem to be this really interesting thread that when we go back in time, we kind of go back in the DNA code as well. Something about like 20% of us, 20% of our DNA and a banana's DNA are exactly the same or something.
Yeah, something like that.
You go like, I'm sure there are geneticists out there that are going to yell at me, James. All the smarty people are going to hate me right now. But you go literally, you just like, if you printed it out on fucking paper, you would go like 10 fucking pages before you go, wait a second, this isn't a banana. Like, that's wild, man. So we have that methodology at the very least. Maybe we don't know the first time some fish crawled out on land, but we do actually have fish that walk right now, and their DNA bears these really interesting markers that are connected to other walking, living things today. That's pretty cool.
Right. So what you're saying is that if there's sufficient criteria, then we can make a good assessment. We could believe.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what I'm challenging is there sufficient criteria to know that?
Good question.
How we started, how far we go back?
Absolutely phenomenal question. And I do think the answer to that is yes. And I do think myself and Scott could present that information. But here is what I am going to ask, James. And I know I'm giving you homework. Would you mind maybe coming back and hanging out when somebody like Dr. Ben or Forrest Valkai is on? Because like those guys really have, I mean, Forrest Valkai is like into biology stuff. Ben's a medical doctor, but both of those guys would have a lot more knowledge and be able to go like, oh yeah, super cool, man. Yeah, here is what that criteria is. And here's how we know all that. Does that sound fair, man? Like they would be a better resource on that for you.
Right, but also, SR, you just demonstrated something interesting. Is that you believe this DNA stuff that you said and all that, but you don't know anything about it. I know nothing.
Oh no! I'm gonna mute you. I'm gonna mute you completely, unabashedly. I have absolutely no qualms and will not be apologizing for that one, James. That is definitely not what I said. In no way, shape, or form did I ever say, I don't know anything about DNA. I'm just accepting it. No, in fact, I think I made it fairly clear that I do actually have some level of knowledge. Not an expert. Just going to say that 1,000 times over. Not an expert. But I do understand just a little bit. Enough to be able to say, hey, actually, yes, this is a good justification for coming to this conclusion. What I offered was somebody that could do it better. What I offered was somebody that could give you the exact data points and the year and the name on the paper, okay? Not that I didn't know and I just accept it.